Ciso. Oh, it's fabulous! A strike to get you up off your seats.
Hello, welcome to Seagulls Social Season 4, Episode 2. It's very appropriate this is Season 4 and Episode 2, I've got to be honest with you, because it's another 4-1 win, ladies and gents. But before we get into the game, right, because it's our second football, that's actually mad. But before we get into the game, it sounds like Maz has just decided to set his alarm on.
Yeah, sorry lads, it's all going off.
Do you know what? We're not cutting that. Anyway, so Maz, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's been a very busy weekend, but no, all the better for another unbelievable win for the Albion. And yeah, mate, I just love how well things are going. Obviously, I don't want to jinx anything, and things can obviously. It's only early days, isn't it? Yeah, it's only 2 games in. We can't get too excited, but yeah, the way we've been playing, the results we've been getting has been incredible. So yeah, everything is good in the land of Maz.
Nice. And Louis, mate, you're new to the podcast, your debut on
Yes.
Seagulls Social.
Yes,
Mr.
indeed.
Video editor, graphic designer,
Yep.
but most importantly, Brighton fan. Absolutely buzzing with that, must be, surely.
Oh, honestly, like the way that we've started this campaign, like even though we haven't been playing what I regard as our best football, like we're just looking so slick still. And I think when we really start to get out of second gear, it's going to be scary. It's going to be really scary.
Scary hours.
Scary hours.
It is,
indeed.
to be fair. It's an interesting topic, actually, because I want to get onto that sort of later on, because obviously the Zerbi's mentioned it and we've mentioned it already over, maybe we aren't at the best as we were last season, but then the 4-1 wins sort of speak for themselves. So it's a bit of a funny one. And obviously the Zerbi did mention the fact that they were changing something up maybe and trying to change tactics slightly. But before we get into all the talking points, I wanted to go through the game because, let's say, absolutely mind-blowing game, to be honest with you. But it has to be said, in that first half, Louis, I don't know about you, mate, but it seemed like Wolves were actually playing pretty decent stuff. And I've got to be honest, I was slightly worried going into the game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they started the game, like you say, it was very, very strong. And it was the same in the first game that they played this season. They looked like they were creating a lot more chances. And I think they've started really well under the new manager. But then obviously it just came down to our overall quality, which then ended up turning the game on its head. But they are creating a lot more. They're looking a lot more dangerous, certainly, than they did last year, because obviously when we played them at our place, we absolutely ran riot. And that's not the same team that we played about 6 months ago.
Yeah, and you, Maz, were you sort of not worried? Because I don't think we should be worried as Brighton fans nowadays. But I don't know, they just started quite well, and it was a bit of a perhaps wake up call with the chances they were getting through and the odd sort of pass through and cut through that they had.
Yeah, like the one that stuck out for me was the 8 Nuri. Is it 8 Nuri? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
The 8 Nuri's chance, which I think he should have done way better with. And yeah, like you say, they look dangerous. I don't think it was one of those games where, as we mentioned, where we really dominated like from start to finish, and we absolutely kept them out. I don't think it was that type of game. And yeah, they were wasteful in front of goal, which obviously which suited us really well. And yeah, like you said, Ryan, they had their chances. It's just they weren't clinical. And again, it gave me vibes. And I think we said it in the preview. They gave us sort of like XG Brighton vibes, back under our Potter days. So yeah, I think if they can find a striker, if they can find their shooting boots, they'll be fine this season. I know, again, we mentioned we were worried for them, but yeah, on that showing yesterday, they looked all right. And that midfield three as well, until Núñez got sent off, of course, looked okay. And yeah, it was just, I think Wolves really, really struggled in front of goal, and we didn't. Simple as that.
Yeah. The amount of chances they had, I think they had the same amount of shots as us, and only a few less sort of on target and stuff. But yeah, their expected goals were not far behind ours, and obviously we bagged 4 and they got 1. So that, I think, spoke to sort of volumes. Go on.
Also as well, I spoke to a Wolves fan, and they were like, we could have easily been 2 up by half time. And I mean,
yeah,
you could sort of it's 2-1 obviously because we scored in the first half, but yeah, you could argue maybe that they had a case because they had some good chances in that first half.
Yeah, no, I do agree, and I watched Match the Day back because obviously I was at the game, so I was on the other side, so I didn't quite see fully the chances that they were having. It sort of shocked me when I watched it back. But yeah, no, to be fair, they were pretty good, but then at the same time, as Louis said, the quality shone through in the end. I think that we broke the deadlock obviously through Karo Matoma, and if you want a way to break a deadlock through quality and proving that you're there, it's to turn into full-blown Eden Hazard, run through about 4 players, go through, and then all of a sudden, it's 1-0 and everything changes, isn't it? And Karo Matoma, we need to speak a bit about him because, and no, this isn't just for the Japanese faithful that we've got on here now. This is for Matoma himself because what a player he is, by the way, and what a goal that was, Maz.
Oh, unbelievable. I love also as well, the best part for me is Estepinian got the assist, even though he didn't do anything. I was like, FBL points, unbelievable scenes. So yeah, that was great. No, the goal itself was just ridiculous. How he just glides past people, his dribbling, and I know this whole as Brighton fans and also non-Brighton fans love the dribbling thesis. They're it's coming to handy. So yeah, it was just a brilliant goal. Just how he just effortlessly goes past players. And do you know what? I was actually the best thing for me was his finish because, especially last season, there was a few times where his finishing was not the best. Like he'd spurned one-on-ones quite a lot actually. Yeah, he was very wasteful in front of goal. So just to see him clinically put that in the back of the net, that's what I was actually the most, because we all know how good he is at taking on players. It's not about, is he a good dribbler, is he not? I think we all know how good he is at that. It's
probably one of the best dribblers in the league, to be honest. But in fact, Louis, that's a whole topic and conversation itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because, I mean, he's proven, like, over the last 12 months that he can take anybody on. Like, the only person that's ever given him any trouble was Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And even then, like, it was still a very, very even matchup.
It wasn't clear-cut, was it?
And not clear-cut in the slightest. But I think from yesterday, what you can take away, like you said, Maz, Estepinian gets the assist. But I think the fact that he's got Estepinian on that side with him gives him so much more confidence and so much more freedom. I think that left side is probably one of the best in the league. Not necessarily in terms of, complete overall ability, but the way that they work together is so, so good. That again, they inspire each other to be more confident, more brave going forward. And, they know that they back each other up defensively as well. I mean, I see a lot of Matoma's defensive work rate. Even when he plays for Japan, like he's always the one, like he's flooding back to try and help out. And I think those two backing each other up down that left-hand side, it's so, so dangerous. But yeah, I just think the way that they link up together it's incredible to watch, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to be honest, I'm glad you did mention the duo because it helps talk about Purvis Estepinian, who has been fantastic, by the way. Just to mention, as everybody already knows, but to bring him in after Marc Cucurella, Player of the Season award, £15 million after we've made £60-odd million on Cucurella himself. It's an insane suggestion to ever say at that time that we'd be improving and we'd be upgrading. But we have, and it's not even a debate that we have. He inverts better than him. He goes forward better than him. He's stronger in defence. His all-round game is so much better than Cucurella's. And I didn't think I'd be saying that before he signed. So it's insane, one, for the scouting department, but two, to give credit to Purvis and what a player he's been for us. I can really see him just becoming sort of that established fan favourite in the next couple of years because I feel like he's gone under the radar quite a bit just because, we've had so many good players like Solly March, like Karo Matoma in the last, few years that's really taken the headlines, and Ciso as well. It's worth mentioning. But Purvis is, Maz, I don't know about you, but it's got to be a case even for the last couple of years. He's been one of our best players. Oh,
honestly, I said it last week. He's arguably the best left back in the league for me. I think you have to put him in that conversation now. That I can't really see anyone better in the league than him. And I thought he was fantastic against Luton, and then he's just done it again against Wolves. So I just love the consistency. Hopefully he can keep this up now for a prolonged period of time. I think to be fair to him, he's actually always been very consistent. But to see him start the season so strong is just another great sign for us. And like you said, the way he's come in so seamlessly since Cucurella left. Again, there was loads of question marks. Can he be as good as Cucurella? Can he replace Cucurella? He's become better than him. And I think that's just credit to, like you said, the scouting team. Tony Bloom does it again. And I think, that left-hand partnership with Matoma is so exciting. Like, imagine them two in Europe. It's just going to be so exciting to see. Just them taking on
Get me buzzing, Maz.
Yeah, some European teams, like, you know, under the lights at the Amex, Matoma and Estepinian just bombing down that left wing is going to be a sight to see. So yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm so happy they're both playing so well because, like Louis said, that left hand side I think is going to be really important for us going forward as well.
Yeah, it reminds me of Anthony Knockaert and Bruno in the Championship. Do you remember how good they were?
Yeah.
It was by far the sort of best duo in the Championship. I mean, Knockaert, the amount of sort of confidence, as you say, Louis, that Matoma has now, that you just see it in Knockaert. I think when we got to the Premier League, it was just a completely different ball game, and they almost just looked like they didn't want to try and do that like they did in the Championship. But Matoma and Estepinian, I mean, like a Harry Kane and Heung-min Son back in the day, the amount of goals they could be getting this season.
That's a big comparison, that. Jeez.
You got to do it. You got to do it, Maz. I mean, this is a good side we're talking about now. We're top of the league for the first time ever after a weekend, or after the first game of the weekend. But anyway, Estepinian, fantastic. Another one I want to mention, just while we're on it, Billy Gilmour. And I'm so glad I can do this because I've banged the drum on Billy Gilmour since we signed him. And I was thinking to myself, he will have a moment where he's one of our most important players. Obviously, Caicedo's gone. Obviously, McAllister's gone. You got sent off. And now we're in a situation of who's going to replace him? What's going to happen next? Billy Gilmour, Louis, talk to me. I mean, it's some rise since last season with all the stuff he had off the pitch and everything that happened with him to come in now and just look like, you know, he's never been out of the squad.
Yeah, I mean, we know that he showed glimpses of what he could do when he was at Norwich, but I feel like those first few games when he first signed, he came into the team and he was expected to do a big job straight away. And I can imagine that's going to get to your head. You know, he looked a little bit shaky the first few matches, but then when he started to find his rhythm, started to find his feet, found his role, you saw how much more confident he becomes. You know, he's dropping deep, asking for the ball, the way that, you know, people like Bissouma and Caicedo always used to do. And now he's taking on that role and he looks so much more confident. And I think that's something that certainly De Zerbi has inspired in a lot of our players. You know, like you say, he was signed under Potter, then to lose Potter and have to work under someone completely different. I know the styles aren't massively dissimilar, but, you know, at the same time, it's much more like it's a completely different scenario to be in. To have to, you know, you've settled in under one manager to then have to switch to another one and start all over again. But the way he's taken to it, and especially, you know, the way he looked in pre-season, he looked really, really, you know, up for it, certainly. And then, you know, these first couple of games, he's looked really, you know, really, really confident. He's looked fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like it's one of them things that De Zerbi particularly has done since, you know, we lose a player, but it's not a case of replacing like for like. It's more of a case of filling a gap alternatively, changing the system a little bit around what he's got. I don't think Gilmour's a Caicedo replacement by any stretch, but I feel like the way he's taken to controlling the game, sort of dropping that a bit deeper and also being able to drive forward, it's sort of characteristics of not Caicedo, probably more McAllister, that you really need in a squad, because I do feel like that was missing in the Luton game where we were getting overrun a bit. I think Dahoud probably wasn't physically dominant enough in being able to stop the sort of counter-attacks the Luton were firing at us. At times, Wolves had the same thing as well. But I don't know about you, Maz, with Gilmour alongside whoever this mystery new midfielder is going to be, whether it might be Baleba, I don't know. But we've got to be pretty confident in midfield if we can get hold of that replacement and have the likes of Gilmour, Dahoud, etc.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know that De Zerbi came out recently, I think in his last press conference, saying he wants a Caicedo like-for-like replacement. He's been pretty clear with that. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see a like-for-like Caicedo replacement come in at some point before the window ends. And yeah, I would love to see Gilmour in there. Look, we talked about it in the last pod, didn't we, Ryan? Like, we did a whole segment on Gilmour and how it really is his time now to sort of take that berth with McAllister and Caicedo gone. And I'm a massive fan of him. I think he's brilliant. And actually, funny enough, I was speaking to Ali McCoist about him. I was like, Billy Gilmour, because obviously the Scottish links, and he was like, honestly, Maz, I love him. Like, I think he can be one of our best ever players for Scotland. And
really?
You know, like if someone like, you know, a pundit that knowledgeable has got faith in Billy Gilmour, and managers have all spoken really highly of him, and fans, like the eye test for fans is spot on. I think we've got a great player on our hands. So I think it's just really, really good times for Billy Gilmour. And obviously he had his bad sort of time off the pitch last season, when that whole thing happened with that woman, sort of like basically doing what she was doing. And to come back from that, I think is just incredible as well. And that sort of mental resolute to show that mental bounce back, I think that's another key attribute he's got. To go through what he did and come back to be so good, I think fair play to him. And I'm really happy for him as well.
Well, I mean, Roberto De Zerbi described him as a potential leader, didn't he? He said that he's someone that could be a potential leader, I guess, in other words, captain. I mean, that alone, I think, speaks, as you say, that sort of mental strength he's got. And pretty similarly, to be fair, to Julio Enciso, who was fantastic yesterday. Worth mentioning, I think. There's a lot of players that are worth mentioning, but I think that these ones particularly. Enciso, De Zerbi described him as the best player on the pitch. He obviously got 2 assists. He's only 19 years old. When Enciso first came in, Louis, I don't know, he was quite raw. He was quite concerning at times, perhaps people wondering if he was going to be getting a loan. The maturity that he's got sitting centrally now, I think. The maturity he's got it is so much better. It's almost like a completely rapid rise on Julio Enciso.
Oh, massively. When you saw he first came in, he was playing a few games in the under-23s, and I feel like at first his objective in his mind was to be the player. He wanted to be the man in the team, and he wanted the ball to always be at his feet and wanted to take everybody on. And then he realised that when he fits into the system, he's going to be even better. So he starts working with the players around him, and you've seen how much he's shone since he started integrating really into the system. And you saw it sort of midway through last season, and then that was, proven by the fact that De Zerbi started to put him way more into the game. But watching his rise in the last sort of 6 months or so even has been incredible to see. The confidence of him yesterday, certainly, the first assist he got for Solly March, I think it was off the outside of his boot, just to swerve it around the defender. Unbelievable. Yeah, that was so good. Absolutely unbelievable. And the confidence to do that, we know he's always had that confidence, but in terms of being able to help other players as well, rather than just having to think that he has got to do it all himself. And that change, I think, for me, has shown the real maturity, like you say, of Enciso, and his progress, certainly in the time that he's been with us.
No, I totally agree with you. And actually, you mentioned the goal. I'll get onto the goal, because the whole move of every goal that we've scored yesterday was fantastic, to be honest. Obviously, we had the Matoma moment. We've got the Enciso. It started from a deep Billy Gilmour pass in there. Sort of just loops it over. Enciso's run through outside of the boot pass, as you say. Solly March, who would have thought we'd be saying it? Clinical as ever. He's now the top of the Premier League goal scorers, going for the Golden Boot.
Boot charge.
Could you believe it?
Golden Boot.
Could you believe it? I mean, look, I've been made to eat my words for the last year and a half now, where I used to say Solly March doesn't score enough goals, doesn't get enough return. He's now the top scorer under Roberto De Zerbi's reign. He scored again, twice, and there's Gareth Southgate in the crowd, Maz. Do you think there's going to be getting an incoming phone call to Solly?
I mean, you can't really argue against it, to be honest with
No,
you.
you can't.
I can't really see where he doesn't get a call up. But look, we know the England team has great squad depth in those areas. I think, unfortunately for Solly, the competition's just ridiculous in that area for England. So look, if we're being realistic, is he going to get a call up? Probably not. However, should he, based on merit and based on form? Absolutely. He's been fantastic. And even prior to his injury last season, at the back end of last season, he was linked with a call-up, wasn't he? I think Southgate was really close to calling him up, and then he got injured. Mm-hmm. So, look, he's a fantastic player. He's a real team player as well. We talk about, Julio Enciso recently becoming more of a team player and, changing his mentality. But Solly March has always been that. He's been very selfless. He's always wanted to do what's best for the team. He's happy to play sort of pretty much anywhere the manager tells him to. And he's just got a great attitude. And, he's the Helsham Hazard, as I like to call him. He's been incredible recently. And, he's just a great squad player, but more than that, I think he's become more than that now, and he's actually becoming pretty much the first name on the team sheet for De Zerbi. But I think he's been linked with wanting a right winger. I think he's been quite vocal about that, hasn't he? About wanting a right winger. So
Yeah, it's an unnamed position, isn't it? So I guess we don't know.
Okay, but it's a right winger.
That is. I mean, obviously the Kudus links, suggests that perhaps that could be the case. But what's your thoughts on that, Louis? I mean, I would say the one thing that's really, really going to help Solly in getting this call up is his versatility, which probably isn't echoed by many, apart from perhaps Bukayo Saka a little bit. But Solly is able to play in obviously left wing back. He's obviously able to play right wing back. He's able to play on the right wing. He's able to play on the left wing. I mean, look, he was in the middle of the box yesterday, scoring 2 goals. Perhaps he's capable of playing up front as well. But Louis, what do you think of Solly's versatility and potential England call-up?
I mean, I think he's very, very unlucky in the fact that we're so strong in depth for England in terms of that wide position. But like you say, because he's so versatile, like he can do a job in any position. He might even just be an impact player off the bench. But I feel like that would be definitely a place for him, and he can really do himself justice. But I think, like you say, he's been always a very selfless player. He's happy to do whatever the team needs. But I remember De Zerbi speaking quite openly, saying he wants Solly to be more selfish. And I feel like if he does, because we know he's got an absolute wand of a left foot, if he puts his mind to it, he could score so many goals. And I think that confidence is really, I think out of the whole squad, I reckon he's taken the biggest step forward.
Agree.
Under De Zerbi out of everyone. Like the confidence he's now showing, I think there's a recurring theme here with confidence. Like the confidence that's being inspired by Roberto De Zerbi is incredible.
Yeah.
But I think especially with Solly, like before, under Potter, he was a kind of, I wouldn't say bit part player, but he didn't really have an established role.
He was a left back, wasn't he?
Now he's playing
he was our left back.
Yeah, exactly. And then, playing now as a sort of right wing, slightly inside, it feels like he's actually really found a position for himself. And the fact that, his De Zerbi's faith is being repaid, and, he's then appearing way more for us. Like everyone's a winner here. And yeah, if he keeps up this streak, like goodness knows how far he could go, but he's showing streaks of like just how good he can be.
Agree. It's a very late bloomer, isn't he, Solly? And I think it's a good thing because, I mean, you look at him in the Championship, it was clear he was probably one of our best talents to come through the academy. He had that moment when, I don't know if this is such an obscure memory, he scored in that friendly against Norwich, I think, and it was like a 25-30 yarder, and he smacked it into the top corner. And I think that was the moment people knew, okay, right, this boy's going to be coming into the first team. He had his moments, obviously, he came through Championship days, scored a fair amount of goals, and there was a lot of hype around him. I remember back at the time I was thinking, okay, right, we've got a proper talent on our hands. We can really see him in the Premier League. And then it almost just seemed like that confidence, as we keep saying, just sort of fell off a cliff, didn't it, for a good couple of years. Didn't really do much else apart from just cutting on his left foot. And that was about it. And if he didn't do that, he was pretty lost. And I think that the fact that De Zerbi's been able to change him around and just become this sort of lethal finisher, as well as someone that's capable of taking on most defenders, it's a credit to the both of them, really. But we'll get on to what goal are we on now? Third, I suppose you could say. I mean, to be honest with you, let's just talk about the fact that we've scored 4 goals twice in a row. By the way, this is a team that we're saying probably we've not played our complete best, I guess, and actually maybe now's the time to talk about that. I don't know about you, Maz. Perhaps this is just a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I just don't think that despite winning 4-1 back-to-back, we've been even close to being anywhere near like last season. Obviously, I think it's quite evident the fact that we're missing Caicedo at times. And, naturally, I guess, because, at the end of the day, this squad's had the 2 best players ripped out of the squad. And I guess when you've had that not only on the pitch, but, mentally, you've got to, recover from that. The rise, I think it's almost a credit to the squad and a credit to manager as how you keep going and keep improving and keep playing to as best as you physically can, regardless of who goes. I mean, it's a testament to really what Brighton's all about, isn't it, Maz?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think you touched on it there. I think people, my sort of answer to people saying, oh, I wonder why we're not as good as we were. I think it's quite clear. As you mentioned, we've lost 2 of our most influential, arguably best players in the team. Of course, we're gonna lose quality. Of course, we're not going to be as clinical we are clinical actually, as good as we were, let's say the back end of last season. Right? Yeah, in midfield, exactly. And yeah, again, it's going to take a bit of a transitionary period where we're going to have to get used to not having McAllister, not having Caicedo, and we're going to have to get used to playing a little bit differently, having different players at our disposal, utilising different players in certain ways, like we said, Encisa coming off the bench, and you obviously now got Joao Pedro coming off the bench. We've got some incredible players coming off the bench as well to impact the game. So, we didn't have that last year. I don't think the squad depth was as good as last year. So I think all these different factors now will come into play, and yeah, like you mentioned, it's definitely a bit of a transitionary period, just getting used to who's going to be coming in as well. And like we said earlier, we've not fully completed the squad yet. We might have another 2 additions potentially to come in as well. So
at least,
yeah, at least. So look, it's very exciting times. Like you said, we haven't really played that well, and to be winning 4-1 on the bounce, I know respectfully against Luton, and Wolves again might have not had the best pre-season.
That did well against Man United, and I think that's what's the weird thing. I mean, it's twice we've played Wolves now in a row where they've been on the back of a pretty decent round of form. I mean, obviously, I know it's only so early in the season to suggest form, but I mean, they turned up well at Old Trafford. I thought, do you know what? They were the better team that day, and the same last time. I think they had won three games out of 4 before they got walloped 6-0 by us. So it is a credit to us. Maybe it's also a bit of a factor of play Wolves and you get a win. I feel but I don't know. I
saw a tweet. It was hilarious. Mark Goldbridge tweeted before the game. It was at 2:00, so an hour before kickoff. He tweeted saying, "If I'm having an eye on the 3:00 kickoff between Wolves and Brighton, and if Brighton beat Wolves comprehensively, we're in a world of trouble." And then we ended up beating them. Yeah, we ended up beating them 4-1, and I thought that was great. So and it's actually funny. Actually, I got in a bit of a banter sort of argument with a Man United fan yesterday, and he was like, I don't know why you're giving it the big one. We're way better than you. We'd beat you. And I was like,
finished
really?
Above United.
Yeah, I was like, really? Are you sure about that? The way you're playing at the moment, you just about got past Wolves, and you got beat pretty well by Tottenham. So yeah. Anyway, this is not the Man United podcast, but I think
if you want. I'm very happy to laugh at them at the moment. To be honest,
slander Man United. Look, we're in a really good position at the moment. Like you said, I think the big thing is, and I think we all need to, as Brighton fans, just sort of take it in, is we're not playing to our best, but we're getting big results. 4-1, 4-1. I think that we should all be really happy with. If we know we can get to another gear, like Louis said earlier, if we're only in 2nd gear, imagine what we're going to be like when we get to 5th gear. It's going to be super scary. So hopefully,
Maz, I for one am very excited for that. But that was awful, wasn't it? Has someone had to say it at some point, didn't they? But anyway,
throws tomatoes.
Get him off.
Louis, I was going to mention the goal I haven't mentioned, which is obviously Purposes to Pinyan. Again, lethal from a player that's a left back, as we say. Positions don't really matter with De Zerbi. I wouldn't really call him a left back anymore. He's half the time he plays in midfield, other times he's practically in the box, and it's a great finish as well. Obviously, Mitoma sets him up. It's that duo again. Purposes to Pinyan, Louis. I know we've already mentioned him, but he's getting goals now as well, which he deserves. He's always in the positions for him.
Always, and I think again, it's coming back to that same theme. It's the confidence. When he first came into the team, he was a little bit shaky. He wanted to go forward, but then realised that it needed a bit of time to integrate and sort of work out how he plays with the rest of the team. But now that everyone's kind of established and knows their role and understands what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, he's really been unlocked. The fact that he gets assists pretty much every single week. He's a lock-in on Fantasy Premier League. I saw he's the second most selected player after Haaland, with 60% of players.
Yeah, I was about to say,
it's unbelievable. Yeah, and it's you see it every single week. And again, like you say, now he's going forward, he's scoring goals. He's always just finding himself in these really, really good positions. But again, if he wasn't as confident, you wouldn't see it. And there are a lot of the left-sided defenders that you see in the league. They're not necessarily the most confident going forward. They'll try and get to the byline and put a cross in, but you don't really see them charging into the box, going to the back post, trying to get a tap in, or finding themselves taking a shot from 18 yards. That isn't something, certainly as Brighton fans, I don't think we would have ever really seen before. You certainly didn't get it with Cucurella. And, I think the fact that, and again, this is going to come back to the price point. Cucurella was our player of the season, the year that he was with us, and then we sell him for 60 mil. He goes into that Chelsea side and it doesn't work because it's just not a good fit. And then people are writing him off saying he's not a good player. He's not the same as he was with us, but again, that's purely because of the system. Purvis comes into our team, he hadn't really set the world on fire. Obviously he did very well with Villarreal when they got to the semi-finals in Europe. But then to come to us, he had a couple of shaky games, but then like you say, when he integrates, everyone starts to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and suddenly he just becomes a completely different player. And it's really, really shone through. And I think the rest of the team recognises immediately how good he really is.
I think that's a really good point as well about Cucurella, and even let's look at Basuma, right? Basuma, who looked so good under Potter.
He's doing well now. Yeah, I've got to say.
Exactly. Whereas it's funny how whenever a Cucurella or a Basuma leave, not maybe instantly they're like, they're terrible players, and I feel like that's because they played in a certain style and a certain system at Brighton, which isn't the same elsewhere. Some players are system players, right? But not to suggest Basuma is, because he's actually now showing under Ange Postecoglou he can play. But obviously under Conte he struggled, so clearly he couldn't adapt to Conte's system, who had a very particular system. Whereas obviously he's now thriving under Ange Postecoglou. So I feel like a lot of players that we do get play well because of the system we have and the manager they're under. There's a lot of different factors. So it's hopefully Estepinian is not that. I think he's just incredibly good, and I don't think it's down to the system. Well, obviously that's a part to play, but go on.
Sorry, Maz, I don't want to cut you off. I was just going to say you've also got to mention.
Oh yeah, go on.
Sorry, Louis. You've also got to mention the fact that these big club fans. I mean, they will just write a player off, and if they don't like them after a few games, it'll be interesting actually to see how it goes down at Chelsea with Caicedo now there, and obviously they've got Colwill, this big role, and it'll be interesting just to see if it doesn't go completely right. They got West Ham a bit later on, haven't they? And if it doesn't go well, and give it a few weeks, they just don't. That's it. They'll be on to the next thing. And it's like shiny new toy syndrome, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, Louis, continue what you're going to say.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was going to make. That is exactly the point I was going to make. When you move to a club like Chelsea, especially, you're given maybe one or two chances, and then everyone is on your back. If you make a mistake or you don't have a good enough game, immediately everyone's onto you. And especially at the price tag, Cucurella, 60 mil. Caicedo, £115 million. That is it's the third most expensive transfer ever or something like that. It's mental. Absolutely insane amount of money. And if you don't perform from game week 1, as soon as you put on that new shirt, at that price tag, everyone's asking questions.
I think that's...
Whereas when you're playing with us, you don't get you get a lot more chances, but then because you get more chances, you then get to show just how good you are.
Yeah. No, I think that point of market value. Obviously, we sign our players 4 or 5 million, so you don't have that expectation, and they're allowed to grow without much anticipation. So like Julio Enciso, prime example. We sort of signed him knowing that he can be a great player, but we were like, look, give him time. He's still very young. Obviously, Evan Ferguson came from Bohemians, or was it Bohemians, when he was 16. All these players we've signed with very little to no expectation. And then when they do come through and they do become these incredible players, we're like, oh, that's great. There's no pressure along the way for them to succeed or become good. Whereas, I don't know, do you remember when we signed Jambach and Lecadia and stuff for quite big money at the time for us? We were like, we need them to do well, and they ultimately didn't, because I suppose they had that big pressure of a price tag. I think it's really key for us to, even let's say we sound like a £50 million player or £60 million player in the future, we need to also remember that not to put too much pressure on them, because otherwise they're going to turn into a potentially a Cucurella, which we don't want to see.
Well, speaking about pressure on players and ones that have thrived outside, Aaron Connolly's doing the right at Hull.
I saw that. He got a brace yesterday, didn't he?
And got a 2, yeah. He won the game for him. So fair play to Aaron Connolly if he's turning it all around at Hull. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much mentioned everybody. There's a couple of talking points, obviously, we picked up on. And the only thing I wanted to really mention else was this whole sort of mystery new signing, who comes in, because obviously, as we say, it isn't the best Brighton, but they're still very, very, very good Brighton. This is the same, not the best Brighton that Gary Lineker yesterday said that we're playing like Brazil. So it's a funny one, isn't it? Perhaps we're very spoiled. Perhaps we've seen a lot, and then maybe that's what it is. We've seen a lot of good things, and we've gotten almost too used to just having good things. And if it's slightly less than perfect, we want more. And I think that's just almost what De Zerbi has put into everybody's heads around the ground. And I admire it. And I think it's such a great mentality to have, to always improve regardless of the situation. But as I said, this new mystery signing, obviously midfielder, is pretty obvious. Whether it be Baleba, whether it will be the I can't ever say his name from Salzburg. Very good.
Duath.
Thank you. Him, and as well. We got the sort of mystery, whether it's a right back, whether it's a right winger. I don't know about you, Maz. Do you think right winger, right back? What's your priority other than just the obvious Moises replacement?
Yeah. Apart from the obvious Moises replacement, I really want us to sign a right back. And I know there's been a lot of talk about Estupiñán being our only left back, and I completely hear that. I think, we do desperately need another left back as well. I think just for depth. However, for me, it's always, and I've said it literally for the last 3 months, we need a right back in my opinion. Because look, if you break it down, you've got James Milner, who's actually deputising really well, but he's not going to play.
Milner's been great. He's
not going to play every game this season.
Unbelievable engine.
He's been fantastic against Luton. He was brilliant, and against Wolves, he played solid as well. But he's not going to get you. He's not going to play you 30, 40 games a season, especially with Europe as well. Then you got Joel Veltman, who's been a bit injured recently, and again, good player on his day. But is he the starting right back? I'm unsure. And then you got Tarek Lamptey, who's unfortunately.
I have a soft spot for Joel Veltman. Love him.
Yeah, no, he's brilliant. But is he like a top caliber right back? In my opinion, no. He's a great squad
Probably
right
not,
back
no.
to have. But and then you got Lamptey thirdly, who unfortunately for him has just been injury prone since he.
For Tarek.
I feel so bad for him. I know he was playing in the under-23s this week as well. Hopefully he can get his fitness back. But just in terms of those three players, okay, you've got numbers, but have you got the quality? That's my big argument. And then, that's what I'd love to see. A right back come in. I mentioned before, Sacha Boey from Galatasaray. I'm a big fan of his. But any right back. And I would actually quite like to see us get Barco if we can from Boca. I know there's been big issues with signing him until December. Sorry, we've got to wait till December because he wants to play in the Libertadores, I think it is. And I'd like to see Barco come in just to cover for Estupiñán. Yeah. But right back and left back. I think right back more so, and then have a cover for left back as well.
And Louis, in a few words, what's your shopping list?
My shopping list. Well, Caicedo, I think, has got to be the priority to replace.
Ignoring Caicedo.
I mean, so out of him and McAllister, I think is the overall better player all around, but Caicedo is way more difficult to replace. Like McAllister's profile is much more similar to a lot of people compared to Caicedo's. And I think in terms of what we've got to look to pick out, I like the look of Tejan Koopmeiners. I think he looks like a very, very promising player, and I think he'd fit our system very, very well.
We were linked with him.
We've got Locatelli, who again. And I think Locatelli with the links from Sassuolo as well. Same with Domenico Berardi. Again, De Zerbi openly said he'd take Berardi anywhere he went in the world. So there's always that possibility. And again, that's that right hand side gives rotation for Solly if we need it. But I think the priority really has got to be a right back, because as much as I love Joel Veltman, he's an absolute king in my eyes. I love him to bits. He's not going to be able to be the starting right back. If we make it to a European final, he's got loads and loads of pedigree, but when he's taking on some of the most elite wingers in the world, the biggest test he's had is Wilfried Zaha, and that's not saying much, is it? So when it comes to this sort of thing, we're going to need someone who's going to be a really, really solid right back that's going to, be able to work in that same way that Estupiñán works with Mitoma. But then who is it that, you know, like you say, you've got names like Sasha Bowie. You know, there are going to be people out there, but it's going to be that person that comes straight in.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, again, versatile, sure.
An attack. I want an attacking right back, someone who can, who basically, I want an Estepinian regen, but on the right hand side. Yeah, clone him and make him right footed on the right hand side. That's yeah. I definitely want a more attacking. Look, like we mentioned with Veltman, he's brilliant. He's great defensively, and he can do a little bit going forward, but he's going forward. He's not the best going forward. So I want someone that can take players on, who can. Yeah, basically, just give us a Estepinian regen. You know, scouting lads, do your thing. Just get us a South American right back who's just unbelievable, and we'll take him. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, some 15-year-old boy.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. 15-year-old Bolivia. But yeah, no, that's. I probably would agree with you, to be fair. Just to be a little bit more exciting, because obviously we're talking about defenders and midfielders. If the case is that we do go for that sort of winger spot. Obviously, we were linked with Kudus, and we were prepared to spend, record-breaking fees on him. It'd be interesting just to see if there is that sort of big name that Brighton go for, because obviously it was evident that we were going for some big names, and Kudus is a big name in the footballing world as a youngster. So it'd be interesting to see if before the window ends, to see if we do go for any, whether it might be Locatelli, whether it might be someone a little bit more advanced, but someone with a bit more of a name to come in for Caicedo or for Solly March sort of backup, or whoever it might be, just to sort of improve that sort of stature, that sort of, at the same time, you don't want someone that's going to come in and think they're a big time, and you almost lose that core that you've got at Brighton of everyone wanting to do their best, because it's a weird balance, isn't it? You don't want a big timer like Trossard turned in to be, but then also you want someone to be a talisman. But in fact, that's a quick conversation. Maybe you don't need a talisman nowadays. Maybe you just need a good working squad, Maz.
I was just about to say, I think a really good example is that. Look at Spurs now. Like, they had Antonio Conte, massive ego, a big name signing as a manager. They obviously had Harry Kane, who's like their talisman. Now that Kane's left and Conte's left, they look way better because they've got a team unit, and Ange Postecoglou's sort of built this amazing atmosphere and a team unit, it looks like. I don't know, look, it's early days. It could all fall apart for Spurs in Spurs fashion. That's very plausible.
Spursy.
But yeah, it's Spursy. But early signs suggest that he's creating a good, like, wholesome, project there, that actually people are playing for the shirt. There's no egos, there's no individualism. They're not relying on one player or two players to get them out of a hole, which they did pretty much every game last season with Harry Kane and Son back in the day. Like, yeah, I think they're a prime example to look at, that not always egos and big names necessarily work. Of course, sometimes they do, and you want that marquee signing, don't you? And everyone talks about a marquee signing, like it's a statement of intent. But I don't think it's always necessary. I think if things are going well for you, like they are at Brighton, what do we need to upset the apple cart? Like, do we need to bring someone in just to say we've made a marquee signing? I don't think so. So I want us just to carry on what we're doing and keep it humble.
I think, I agree with you there, because like the marquee signing can actually work against you. I think having that focal point, because with Spurs, right, the focal point was Kane. So all people had to do was just surround him, because the rest of the team didn't have that same ability to really, take the game by the balls and really, take it to the other side, because teams knew that Tottenham just wanted to feed Harry Kane, just get the ball to him and let him do the rest. It made them a lot more easy to play, I think, personally. And, Conte's whole thing was, again, you just got to try and get it down the flanks, get it inside, get it to Kane, let him go to work. That's not going to work. And I think with Brighton, because we know that there are so many different threats across the side, the way that Solly March has blossomed, the fact that Enciso is, he's a little pocket rocket, he can just suddenly, make something happen. And we all know how good Mitoma is. And the fact that Mitoma is that good, he draws so much attention to himself, then the rest of the team has so much more space. And because Mitoma is such a selfless player anyway, he's always then going to look for the teammates. You've got Welbeck, who's always an aerial presence as well. You've got Evan Ferguson, who we now know how clinical he can be. And Joao Pedro, who, you know, he's only had a few games under us, but he already looks like a serious player. And I know he had a very, very good season at Watford last year, but I think he's really going to get a chance to show what he can do in the Prem.
No, I agree with you. I agree all round. And to be fair, I do think that, just to say my thoughts, I think that perhaps with a team like ours, you just want to keep that community feel to it, I suppose, because it's where it got you, isn't it? It's got you to where you are, and you don't want to lose that, perhaps. But yeah, no, it's an interesting debate actually. Do that as a comment below today. Would you rather a talisman or would you rather a team? Because T or T. Because at this, I can see both sides. I can see why you'd want your Wilfred Zaha at Palace, but then at the same time, if you've got a team that works together and you've got your Encisos, your Matomas, why not? And I think it is working for us. And it's working wonders. But yeah, I think that's just about everything covered. Unless I've missed anything, Maz, I don't think I have.
No,
but yeah, we will see you just before West Ham, another team which you've got a decent record against. But yeah, until then, have a good rest of your week. And we'll see. And by the way, thank you as well for Louis dropping in very, very, very late notice last night. I've never been on the podcast, so this
Pleasure.
is very, very big ups to Louis for doing this.
No problems at all.
Yeah, top man. So yeah, we'll see you all very, very soon. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, Spotify stream, Apple Podcast stream, all that good stuff. And we'll see you very, very soon for West Ham. Goodbye.